I would like to introduce our panel, former Director of Power Rangers content for Saban Brands and Hasbro, and incoming writer of Boom's Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Melissa Flores.
Woo-woo!
Current Boom Studios editor, Daphne Plebin.
Woo-woo!
And the writer of Power Rangers Aftershock, Go-Go Power Rangers Forever Rangers, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, Power Rangers Ranger Slayer, and I think that's everything.
That's everything, yeah.
Ryan Parrott.
You're leaving off, I believe, 2 short stories in a deluxe edition?
Yeah, 2 more.
And 2 short stories in a deluxe edition, sorry.
Yeah.
16 pages that I forgot about.
You mentioned Aftershock too, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That was the first one. So let's, in fact, start there. Ryan, your first Power Rangers work was the movie sequel graphic novel Power Rangers Aftershock.
Yes.
In March 2017.
Good Lord. When I had all of my beard had no white in it. Yeah, it was awesome.
5.5 years later, nearly 100 single issues, well over 2,000 pages of comics. You've announced that September's Mighty Morphin Power Rangers 100 will be your final issue of the book. Monthly, that is. To ask the obvious question first, Ryan, why now?
Why now? Because after 106 issues or something like that, I think that's the math I did on it. Like, it felt like it was time to let someone else play with the toys, right? I've been very, very, very lucky to stay on as long as I have, thanks to her and you. I wouldn't be on this without them. And so, like, it was nice to, I think the nicest thing I thought about this was it's really nice to go out on sort of like your own terms a little bit. So, because so many times books get canceled early or you get fired or, you know, just things just happen. So the idea that we were actually able to plan the runway to be able to end it was really cool.
Great. Daphne and Melissa, you, of course, were both there behind the scenes when Ryan came on. What do you guys remember about bringing Ryan on board? Could you ever have imagined that 5.5 years later he would still be here?
Be nice.
You don't have to be nice, to be clear.
Well, the funny thing with the Aftershock graphic novel is, like, a lot of the movie tie-ins have to write something.
They're hell.
Can't see.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist yet. Maybe read a script. You're not allowed to take. You have to take notes. And I think at the time I read the script, I took notes, then hired Ryan. You had to write a pitch before you were allowed to come in and read the script.
The movie was not even done. It wasn't even close to being done.
And it was such an interesting experience because part of the reason why I thought of Ryan at the time, and I did not know that he was already friends with Kyle. I had just fought with him at a convention on a panel. It was a terrible mod, and he said something that I disagreed with.
So the rule is, if you want to work in comics, disagree with somebody vehemently at a panel, and they'll hire you for 106 issues.
Please don't disagree with me at a panel.
But it was such a good conversation, and it felt like it was such a real discussion rather than, no, you're wrong, and why are we still talking about this? The way my family expresses love is disagreement. So when I knew we had to do the graphic novel, I had a lot of experience with tie-in licensed graphic novels through Planet of the Apes, and having to do that and realizing that that process requires a lot of conversation, a lot of teamwork, a lot of willingness to roll with the punches. And I guess because Ryan survived the Klingon adolescence ceremony that is fighting with me about the Winter Soldier, I thought this would be a great opportunity to see how we work together. And honestly, I know a lot of people that work in a creative industry sometimes feel like, well, I want to do originals and licenses, like, you know, working in someone else's sandbox. And I actually love the challenge. And for something that has a lot of limitations by nature of the process and what you have to serve, it was a really fun, creative, fulfilling, problem-solving experience. And so then when Go-Go became an opportunity, I knew I had to bring Ryan back. And I am very proud of that choice.
Yeah.
Aww.
Yeah, I mean, it was like, it's not easy, and you really, I felt bad because I remember the mandate with Aftershock was, oh, we want to do an Aftershock, we want to do a movie tie-in, but you can't change anything, the characters can't change, and you can't do anything that's going to affect anything for like any additional movies if we end up doing. And poor Ryan, I remember we had to come in and read the script.
I don't mean to interrupt, but I remember when you brought me into they brought me into, was it Saban, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you took me into the main conference room, and I guess the room next to it was the screening room. So they sit you down and they bring you the red script, and then there's like a security person standing right there. So the whole time you're reading it, and I remember they were screening some of the movie behind you. So the whole time I'm reading it, it's literally like an entire explosion after explosion. It's rocking the wall behind me, and I was like, this is an amazing script. It was really helping. It was like I was like, this is nuts. You should do this for every single script reading.
Yeah, but I remember being like, how is this, like, how do you create a compelling story when you cannot change anything? The whole point of a story is growth and change.
Yeah.
And he did it in a really ingenious way by introducing these two kids and having a lot of the story be based around them. And I just remember being so, there's a T-Rex walking right outside. I remember being so impressed.
That would be weird anywhere else, but not here.
I remember being so impressed with him and with his ability for his little nuances. I mean, I think one of my favorite character moments comes from Aftershock, that scene with Trini and Kimberly at the end where Trini does the fist pump from that movie.
Breakfast Club.
Breakfast Club. And so when Daphne said, we want Ryan back for Go-Go, I was like, hell yeah, he's amazing.
Ryan, could you have imagined dedicating this much of your life to the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers?
No, I was never be that lucky.
I want to ask about some favorites from your last 5 years. Melissa and Daphne, if you guys have any thoughts, please feel free to jump in. Favorite characters to write?
Anybody funny is helpful. I really liked writing Zach. I loved writing Rocky. I know I've said this. Steve just walked off, so I can say this. I love writing dumb characters, so it's fun. He's gonna run by. That was a T-Rex that was going by. No, but like anytime Squat, I really love writing stuff for Squat because when you have to write action and you have to write stuff, it's just nice to have somebody come. I remember there's a moment I think it's in the Eltarian War where. There are going to be a lot of spoilers because we're talking about everything, but like there's a part where they all jump. It's when the minions team up with the Power Rangers and they yell "Go Go Power Rangers!" and as they jump out, Squat yells it with them. And I always thought that was such a fun thing. He's like, I got caught up in the moment. It's like those characters are really really fun to write. So anytime you can break up the stuff.
I was actually like really surprised the Go-Go run, the relationships that you built with Rita and her minions. There was just like a lot of not just Rita backstory, but there was this like run, I think, second arc of Rita recruiting each minion. You had this like little digestible short story of how she met them time and I think I even while editing the book, I don't think I understood Rita and her minions as their own little messed up found family until that arc, and that kind of defined the character for me ever
It was
since.
based on a question you asked me early on. I think it was a conversation. We have
Yeah.
long conversations about other things, but I remember there was a conversation. You were like, "Why does Rita keep them around if they fail all the time?"
Mm-hmm.
And from that question, I was like, "Well, there's got to be a reason." And I thought, okay, it's like I remember thinking like, if I had an older brother, stepbrother, who was really mean to me all the time. But if anybody else picked on me, he would defend me like crazy. And I thought that's probably how Rita is. She picks on her minions all the time. But if anybody else did, she would knock them out. And I felt like there's a family there. So I thought, okay, this must have been a group of people that she sort of slowly picked up over time. Yeah.
And over time, like they are kind of each thinking of themselves and are defined as themselves as failures. And then when we kind of cracked the Fiona and Rita story and later Master Vile, it was like, oh, there's a part of her that kind of recognizes herself in them and just really brought it full circle for me.
I really loved Matt. I thought Matt was just such an interesting, fun character. I love the idea of one kid who wasn't picked. And it's just so sad, the tragedy of Matt and what happens with him and Kimberly. And I think I feel the same way about Alpha One. I just like Ryan does such a good job with like these inherently tragic characters that just pull at your heartstrings and like just make you want to hate everything in a really good way.
I mean, Matt is the way that we cracked Go-Go. Remember? Yeah. I mean, Go-Go was such and Melissa remembers this too. I think we initially pitched it as a boombox Lumberjane Saturday morning cartoon riff.
I remember, yeah.
And then at the time, there was sort of this mandate of like, we kind of want to keep everything in the same tone. And we were kind of faced with this problem that comics is faced with a lot, which is, we already announced it. Shoot, how do we retool it? And the kind of initial idea was, oh, if Mighty Morphin Power Rangers started with Green Ranger's first day, Go-Go would start with Power Rangers' first day. and then me and Ryan were talking a long time. Like,
yeah.
wait, what? Well, what does that mean?
I've always, you know what? Screw, I'm gonna do it. I've
Yeah,
always talked about
can't
what,
fire you.
what my, you can't fire me. Oh man, this has got way better.
Oh no.
So there was a pitch. Can I tell the pitch that I originally pitched you? That I was. So I've always had it in my back pocket because I might use it for another book, but now I can't. So the original pitch that I pitched was it opened with a fight between Rita and the Power Rangers. She sends a spell at the Power. This is Go-Go 1. Sends a spell at the Power Rangers that backfires, and it turns in like there's an explosion, and the Power Rangers come and they find Rita in like a crater, and she's 16 or 17 years old now and has no memory of being Rita. And the idea was that they would try and take her to high school. And so it would be about them trying to turn her into a good person. But I just love the idea of Rita being at football games and screaming at the like it was. I had this whole idea of like, oh, well, actually that's I'm not going to spoil stuff. But there was like this idea of like, can the Power Rangers turn their worst foe into an ally? And then ultimately, would she find out that she was actually Rita, and how would that happen? That was the pitch. And
I
then
still
it would have been a lot of fun. Yeah.
love that idea of like Rita in high school.
Yeah,
going
I
to
mean,
prom.
looking back on it, it feels like you kind of did that story with the putty.
Oh yeah, kind of
Yeah.
yeah. Ah, still from the best. Your own stuff. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite issue that you wrote? Or I know that's very specific, like a favorite arc or a favorite story.
Yes, and it was one that I didn't expect. It was the color swap issue in Go-Go. That run, I really liked that because it was really fun in the sense that it asked a lot of questions that I'd never really had. Like, you know, do the coins pick you, or do you pick the coins, or are you the Red Ranger because you got the red coin, or did the red coin make you the leader, and all that stuff. And I think the last two issues of that run are my favorite because I got to do, and maybe I could be wrong about this, I did a lot, so I don't remember anymore. But there's a scene, I think that's when Skull goes on a date with Kimberly.
Yes.
Yeah, so they go, and I really liked that scene because it doesn't go the way that you think it's going to go. And I liked that you got to learn all about Skull and his family in a way that it was about, I love that he saw that Kimberly was, this is so egomaniacal talking about your writing like this. I so apologize. But like, I like that he saw that she was in pain and didn't take advantage of that because he cared about her so much. And then at the same time, you were seeing all of the Rangers arrive on Brielle, and then like you got to see Kimberly as she's the Blue Ranger. All of a sudden, she's thinking a little bit differently, and you got to see
Trini is the Red Ranger.
Trini's the leader. Yeah. So that was the stuff that I thought was that just came out of like once again long conversations about stuff that you just took for granted as a fan. And I think that's the fun of doing comic books. It's like we all watch the show and we all like it, and we all have these conversations together with our friends at getting coffee or online. And so it was nice to be able to take those conversations and have the time in Go-Go to be able to explore those and story arcs about them.
Well, I think my favorite thing from that issue was Skull was the emotionally mature one, which is not how you expect that issue or conversation to go. And it didn't feel surprising or cheap. It was just this moment of like, sometimes when you're hurting and then you realize that the person that maybe like is triggering that in you is actually maybe in a little darker place, and you have like that one moment of clarity of like, my life is a mess, but maybe I'm the mature one in this second. But I also remember fighting with you on that issue and that arc because I fundamentally disagreed with the idea of the coins imparting some element on, like I always thought of the coins as a magnifying glass for traits that were within someone, because to me it was like the choice between nature versus nature, or I wanted the Rangers to be special with or without the coins. But Ryan, I think, threaded the needle in such a way, and I tell him this to this day, it actually unlocked the physics of the Rangers universe for me much later down the line. And you can track a lot of sort of canon wink stories that we do later, pulling on this idea that it's not just that you're choosing the coin that aligns with the way that you see yourself within a team, but you're also imparting that back onto the color spectrum. And so in some capacity, everyone who is a Red Ranger leaves a little bit of their best self in the red spectrum. Everyone who's a Yellow Ranger leaves a little bit of their best self like in the yellow spectrum. So when you tap into that spectrum of light, you are the culmination of everyone who will ever tap into that spectrum of light. Because to me, and it's something that we always had to kind of figure out with every story, like the way that anything should be solved in Power Rangers is better together.
Yeah. I remember that arc because we, like, from a brand perspective, because they do these amazing, like, all this powwow stuff, and they come to us with a pitch, and then, like, Daphne has to hear our 1,000, like, what
Your
ifs
notes
and-
were always my favorite.
Thank you. But I remember us having that conversation because it was really one of the first times I really had to have a fundamental conversation about how the morphing grid works
Yeah.
and how it affects the colors and what happens if the colors switch.
Yeah.
And I remember, especially because the planet Brielle, we were like, okay, we had to like kind of do a little bit of like mental gymnastics in our version to be like, okay, how do we make this work? Because we want it to work. So how does the Brielle planet work if the morphing grid energy affects it differently here than it does on Earth? And I just remember those are just having so much
Atmosphere
fun.
refracts the energy, the way that the coins.
But we've like you get so much story out of it,
Yeah.
and it makes so much sense. And I just loved that. That's the kind of flexibility that the Boom comic books would afford us. They challenged us to have our perception of what the morphing grid is and how it affects us. And it came down to creators like Ryan who were like, "This is what I want to do." And I mean, it was our job to try and help you make it work. And sometimes we're successful, and sometimes you just were better than than we should have been.
But my favorite thing about when I was getting feedback, because I could see who's giving feedback, and I came to look for the MF, the mother flippin' Melissa Flores, is you always had the question you weren't looking to be like, this can't happen. It was always, how can we make this happen and keep our canon coherent? And it was also character based, because I think the biggest thing that we all responded to writing these things is how do we make every decision character rather than through plot.
Well, and I always said, like, nobody did character like Ryan. Like, those little vignettes at the very beginning, the arcs they did of these characters and where they moved, it was always just so touching and so, like, personal, each and every one. It was always a joy to read every issue.
Usually because I couldn't figure out the plot and I needed 3 pages out of the book. So I was like, all right, I got to figure out something. All right, Squat talks about a baby prison. Let's do that. Yeah.
Favorite villain?
Favorite villain? Oh, man. I think Rita. That was the fun. That was the fun. It was like, trying to, I think the hardest thing is like trying to find ways for your villains to win when they lose all the time. Because the more they lose, the more they just feel like they're powerless. And I think Rita, in Go-Go, I was able to make Rita win a lot because she was able to keep it kept the plot moving. So I was like, okay, she doesn't win, but she makes Kimberly break up with Matt. Or she doesn't win, but she finds out the location of the green power coin. It was always trying to figure out a way to do that. I actually forgot that rule as I went longer into the series, and then the villain just started losing. Spoiler.
Sorry, as Ryan was talking, I had a thought for Turtle. I was writing a note. Yeah, Rita.
Read that out loud. Yeah, read
no,
that. Read
absolutely
that out
not.
loud.
Rita as well. Though I definitely, when the book split to Mighty Morphin and Power Rangers, and thought of being able to explore the greater Rangers universe at that point of time, I got like really bullish. Like, I want Teenage Corone. I want like Winter Soldier, Astronema, and like Warped Snow White, and the Huntsman. And so I did a lot of research into the In Space and the Corone Astronema arc, and
And I was like, who?
and I completely fell in love with her too. So Rita and Corone.
Yeah.
Astronema.
They're both one and the same.
What? Spoilers.
What's my favorite villain? Oh gosh, that's really hard. Through all Power Rangers or just Mighty Morphin?
Power Rangers.
Geez. That's really. Now I'm thinking of everybody, and I'm getting like this in a version of Freezer
We'll do
or
that.
Freezer Bird. I really liked Master Xandroid. I just thought he was really cool. I was looking at a figure of Master Xandroid, and I'm like, he's just such a freaking cool character. He just like sits in his boat and like drinks all day, and then just like orders people around. That was
How
cool.
do I get that
I
job?
didn't write that.
I know, but no, I really did love Astronema and Corone. I thought that was just a really well told story, and I freaking love Rita Repulsa. She's the OG. It's hard not to love her.
Yeah. Favorite new thing that you added to the Power Rangers canon? A concept, a Zord, a character?
How about a Zord combination?
Sure.
The White Tiger and the Green Dragon Zords coming together. That was on my checklist for bringing the Green Ranger back. I was like, I want to see that. Although, you know what? One thing I did really like that we came up with, which was sort of like a weird like thread the needle thing, was the emissaries. That came from, and this might be speaking out of school, so, but like there were some rules in the early days with Cizzabon that we weren't allowed to use certain stuff, and so we had to come up with sort of these little middle ground characters. And I remember with Kyle, we were trying to figure. I remember sitting at a coffee shop with him, thinking about how do we create like somebody that can talk for the Morphin Masters. And so we talked about the idea of like, well, wait, so I really loved the idea that we came up with, which is the idea that they were three, and it was the red, blue, and yellow, and they were the three primary colors. And that all of the Rangers came from those three colors, and so they would talk kind of, and this is a Star Trek thing. The idea is like the prophets in Deep Space Nine, how they all shift through the different Power Rangers as a way of showing like times a flat circle and stuff like that. That was really fun. I really ended up liking that thing because it ended up helping so much going forward. It was very, very helpful.
And you guys didn't know it. And I think you came up with the emissary for Comic Book Day.
Yes, for Comic Book Day.
Because we needed a narrative structure that both onboarded new readers event, but also
Those are always fun.
served a function in the story, and it was unlocking Zordon asking for help, and then those emissaries became very essential later on with Universe, and that shifting element. We found a reason for it that was like really, really cool. For me, I think honestly, it was how we shattered the grid.
Yeah, that was cool.
I remember we got like, okay, the 25th anniversary is coming up. We need a big event. Well, I mean, it's a team up, right? It's Power Rangers. What do you want to see in a big anniversary event? You want to see every single
all
team
the teams, yeah.
team up. And we don't have the restrictions of budget, actor availability, shooting schedule. We just have poor Daniele who's saying no more.
In Italian, no more, and that's not how it does.
But part of like, how do we bring all the teams together? We had to grapple with, some teams are in another universe with RPM and Dino Charge, right?
Yeah.
And then others are on the same timeline. How do we create a Deus Ex Machina device that lets us time travel, but also universe travel without breaking the canon that these teams stay on the same thing? And then I can tell you exactly the cheat that we did was, I'm a big Trekkie. And so my favorite book as a kid was the Captain's Table series from Pocket Books, which was this concept of there's one captain's bar, and it's the same point of time and space regardless of where you are. So Kirk and Picard and Janeway and the captain of the Titanic can all have a drink together.
Is this the ending of Lost? What the heck is this?
This happened in 1993, I think, and it was my first connecting cover experience too, when I realized they all connect. I was like, oh, what if the Morphin grid is like the captain's table?
Wow.
It connects to every point of time. Any point you enter the grid, from any point of time, it's the same grid. Any universe you enter it from, it's the same grid. And then all we have to do is break the grid, and then all the pieces are sitting on the table together, and I don't have to solve for time or space. I can just destroy the one constant, the entire Power Rangers canon, and it's the Morphin grid.
Yeah.
A confession, I now understand Shattered Grid. I got it.
I
We're
knew
good.
we'd get there eventually.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you guys. Thanks for coming. This was it, yeah.
My favorite was Ranger Slayer. I love Kimberly so much, and what Ryan did with Ranger Slayer was just incredible. I love this idea of this. Her story was just so tragic, and the build up to her, these flashbacks with Bulk and losing Matt, and like what she must have gone through that entire journey. It always resonated so much for me. Like Draken, I love Draken at all, but Draken's like can kind of be a dick, and I love Ranger Slayer's tenacity and how she's gone through so much and still tries to be a good person despite everything she's ever done.
Well, and about your participation in Shattered Grid, what's so cool about Go-Go is we got to do the Go-Go way of telling an event comic. Just keep it character focused. With Ranger Slayer, I always think back to that page, Dandrew, of her having a smoothie for the first time.
Oh, that's my favorite page.
Since her world fell apart.
Yeah.
And you see, like, it's this universal feeling of like being in your 30s and going back to where you grew up and suddenly feeling so old but also young again.
Yeah.
Get that great science fiction conceit of literally confront your younger self, and your younger self can literally confront their fear of the future and have a smoothie. But it's so much more than a smoothie.
I do remember when we went in to do like the big powwow about Shattered Grid. I did remember I talked to Con. I was like, "Do I have to be a part of Shattered Grid? Like, is that something?" And he was kind of like, "Yeah." I was like, "Okay, all right,
Part
we'll
of the
figure it
hero's
out."
journey, you have to refuse the call.
Yeah, he's like, "Maybe."
But that is something that I think that Boom Studios and Ryan and Kyle and everybody did really, really well, is that one of the big concerns with 2 ongoings is, one, can we support a 2 ongoing? And 2, is it just going to be the same book two times a week, 2 times a year or a month? And I remember, that each time, both with Go-Go Power Rangers and Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and then Mighty Morphin and Power Rangers, you guys found a different way to tell stories, so that they did feel very different books each and every time. Even when it was written by the same man, like Mighty Morphin and Power Rangers, where you're focusing on the space exploration with the Omega Rangers and then still staying in Angel Grove for Mighty Morphin, I was always super impressed by that. I thought it was very cool.
Found a way to balance Go-Go. Like, I always loved when, like, Kyle's like, oh yeah, I read the draft of Brian's script you haven't seen yet, and I've already worked this in. I was like, cool. One less thing I have to worry about. But it always felt complimentary rather than doubling up.
Well, yeah, that's that one scene where you're seeing one side of Kimberly
Yes.
or Ranger
God.
Sawyer's conversation with Drakon, and then in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, you're seeing Drakon's side of the same conversation. It was so freaking cool.
So I remember the day Kyle called me. So I was in New Orleans with my wife at the time, and we're in it was a jazz fest, and there was a giant parade, right? And we're standing there's nuns, like a dancing group of nuns doing Like a Virgin, and it's so loud. There's thousands of people. And Kyle calls me, and I'm in the middle of this. He's like, hey, man. I'm like, what? He's like, we got to write the Dragon scene right now. And I was like, and so I'm literally trying to transcribe stuff over in the middle of a crazy drag party. So that's how you write cross dialogue between 2 people. One goes to New Orleans and goes and sees a giant parade.
I like it.
That's why we can only do those scenes once a year.
I know, we're going to work it up there.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite page or cover from your run?
I think, you know what, the cover for the color swap issue with Trini with the sword, because I remember I saw that picture and I was like, Mama's got the big sword now, and I wrote that as dialogue later on because of the cover that Dan did. And then one thing was cool was my wife walked by one time and she saw that, and she saw Trini on the front cover, and she was like, that's really cool. You don't usually see like Asian American, like Asian like leaders, and she just like that. She thought it was kind of empowering and cool, and I was like, really? And that's one of the things I was sort of blind to, so that made me feel good. Like there was no intention. It was just like it was cool that she saw that, and that made me feel like we did a good job.
First thought, I'm torn between the second Go-Go cover where Dan draws them sitting on the Megazord.
Damn it, that was my
Okay,
That was mine as well, yeah.
But
Apparently I screwed up, sorry.
For issue number 1 of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, we have, all of the Power Ranger books, we have a lot of covers, but we really struggled finding the main cover. We
I remember
had
that.
about 30 covers generated. We had a different plan in place at the time, and Jamal Campbell, who's this incredible artist, and he's doing amazing stuff for DC right now. He is a big Power Rangers fan, and I got his Chris Anka. And so I was like, I'll just generate this. I can probably find a retailer variant. I'll find a slot for it. I want to see what it does. And just like when Henry's test pages came in, we tested a lot of people for the interiors as well. At the time, it was a real huge struggle. And you guys probably experienced this as Power Rangers fans. A lot of people engage with Power Rangers as like a nostalgia property. They're like, oh, the 90s were so weird and everything is slap bracelets. And we didn't want it to feel like we were laughing at our younger selves, or like it was a joke or it was light. And when Jamal's cover came in, that is what superheroes feel like when you're watching the show. And
it felt epic.
It felt epic, and it felt fluid, and it had golden light, and everyone was like kicking ass, and the costumes felt the best versions of their costumes while still being cloth. And so I just remember that cover coming in, and the first time seeing Henry's test page, it slotted into place. I was like, you just go by instinct. This is the book.
Well, and
we did 5 covers.
Well, it's amazing is it just because again, seeing it on the other side, we were looking at all those covers, and I remember the struggle where we're just like, this just isn't feel right, because up until Boom, we had other licenses that were doing the comic books, but they were all very young. And it was a completely different tone, and we were just so in love with what Boom was doing that the covers didn't seem to match the story. And when we saw Jamal's, we're like, yes, this is exactly what we need.
Jamal were
Yeah.
captured. Almost like J. Abrams
Yeah.
like the lens flare, the feeling of movement.
And then Dan Mora, like when Dan Mora, I remember I said something very inappropriate when I found out Dan Mora was coming on board because I was so excited. And
what was it?
I can't say.
It might be too inappropriate for Power Morphicon.
We were so. I mean, Dan was someone who I found on. I saw his art on Tumblr, and it was Diana Wonder Woman on a bike. It was like a biker AU of the Justice League, and there was no name because someone stole the art because it's the internet. And I reversed image searched and found his like Behance. Had no email, and so just on the off chance, I made a Behance account and like DM'd him. Felt like a creep, like comics. And at the time, I wasn't on Rangers. I was on Planet of the Apes. This is a license. It's 2014. He goes, yeah, no one's ever asked me. I work in the newspaper in the graphic design department. I put him in contact with Eric, got him on text. And then when Rangers got announced.
And Klaus, right? Klaus was
and Klaus. When Rangers got announced, Dan slid back into my email. He goes, hey, Power Rangers is my favorite. And imagine, I mean, we all see Dan Mora's art now, right? He's an incredible artist.
Yeah.
And he was on the rise then. Imagine
I made him.
someone coming in who is already pretty good, already worked with Grant Morrison, said, can I do a variant cover? I was like, Dan.
Yeah, but we got him for all of Go-Go too, which I remember being like, can we get Dan? Because I fell in love with Klaus.
So everyone's like, well, Daphne, I mean, he's got bigger books to do, you know? And I'm like, but I didn't ask for this. Dan did. I'm not like trying to
Well, he
swipe
found out I
anything.
was going to write it. And I
Yeah,
was like, I
totally.
get it.
Actually,
Actually,
I worked with Grant, but obviously
no,
Ryan
I
is the
asked
next
him.
step.
I asked him at Cowork San Diego. I was like, hey, so just, don't feel influenced by who's asking this question, but like, who writes a better script, me or Grant Morrison? And he looks at me and he goes, you write less? And I was like, great, I'll take that as better. Thank you.
But yeah, he's so clearly like it's rare that you find someone who. I mean, it's rare that you find someone that good. Period. Ever. But so clearly loves Power Rangers. He is an old school fan. Trini is his favorite character. He was ecstatic to join the team. And can I? The Bond doesn't own Rangers anymore. I remember. In that day, in those days, we'd get a lot of brand notes. I got very good at spotting whether the pinstripes were on the belts or not, and if the
It
diamonds
matters.
were touching
You guys
the white
notice
turtlenecks
when
or
the
not.
pinstripes are wrong, right?
And
or when
I would fight every single time. But what was so funny to me is, you guys clearly love Dan as much as we did. And that we were in agreement. Sometimes I'd still get a note on Dan art, and then when we did a tour in the offices, I remember being like, "Oh, and Dan's for our key art for our brand book," and I was like. And you're still giving him notes?
Yeah, I mean, we loved Dan. We tried to work with him as much as possible. We got him on the Renegade game art. Like we got him
So
everywhere.
good.
He's fantastic and discovered through Daphne. So thank you, Daphne.
Yeah.
It's lucky he loves Rangers.
I mean, she also, Daniele, Simone, like all these incredible artists. Like you have such an eye for spotting this
So
talent.
I will say Daniele was Alex Gaylor, who was an assistant editor on the books for a very long time. And Daniele is like one of our favorite people ever to work with. And Simone De Mio, I think, was Levine, actually. He brought him in for the Ninja Storm short in the anniversary. And he was such a delight to work with. I've been so lucky to be on these books with creators. I got to see them their final form, right? Like, you can look at the first thing someone's drawn and the latest thing someone's drawn, and it's still them, but it's also, I always say this, Power Rangers is the testing ground. It forces you to draw 1,000 characters in and out of costumes, finding monsters, fighting Zords, different scales, different environments, all at once.
All right, back on me. All right.
Well, you have to write those.
They're
first.
not leaving the book. I am. No, I'm kidding. Sorry.
So Ryan, 100 issues-ish is a lot of comics.
Yes.
But it's also actually not that long.
Not when you're writing 2 and 4 a month. No.
Is there any ideas that you had, any thoughts that you had that you just never got to do?
Yeah, there was. I've said this to some people who came up to the booth. I really wanted to do a Dane and Yale story together. Just 'cause I wanted to do cats and dogs fighting together, mass hysteria. But that was one fun one I got to do. There was lots of little things that I was never able to do that were like things that we started down a path and it didn't happen. Yeah, that's probably my answer.
Cool.
Yeah, well, the Rita one, yeah.
Yeah. Melissa is taking over the book next, so no pressure on Melissa.
Woo woo. Good luck.
My revenge.
Is there anything that you are leaving in the toy box that you would really like Melissa or a later writer to pick up and have a play with?
That's a
There's one thing that is.
There is
No,
one thing
I
you
know,
told
I know,
me.
I know.
You told me that there was one thing I had to do.
Can I say that?
Yeah.
They can't fire me.
Okay, that's fine. You can say
Okay.
that.
Is it?
Do you want to check with me? Or?
Guys, so she said. No. Yeah, I would like an end to Matt's story. I think that was the one thing that I think I told you when I heard you were, like when you were doing this, because I was like, I have an idea of what I was always planning to do with it. But I've said this before and people don't believe me. It's like, I didn't intend Matt to become a ranger. I was always he was just going to be the outside friend. And it just came through, just the nature of like the storytelling. You're like pieces start to fall and pretty soon the story kind of guides you. And then I was like, wait, I get to bring the Dragon Zord back and do do all that fun stuff. So like, who doesn't, that was the point. But yeah, I think an ending to that story would be nice because he is something that started in Go-Go and has run through. He has stayed a long time. Some people would say too long, but I disagree.
I mean, what I will say is that I have felt so safe and supported throughout this whole process, and it is because of Daphna, because of Ryan, because the minute that Ryan found out, I got a text that was just so like supportive and effusive, and like it meant so much to me because I have been on the other side and I have given the notes that Ryan didn't want to hear, and so for him to say that he was happy that it was me taking over the books and also just continue to be a support system and a sounding board, like, we've done cons together and he's given me such incredible advice. And, I've been in industry for the long time, but this is, my first licensed book that I am writing for Boom. So to be able to have his experience and his support and his advice as I'm like, well, here's what I'm thinking about doing. And I'm listening to what he's saying. It's invaluable, and like it means so much.
All right. Before we wrap up, I would like to also acknowledge that, Ryan, you're not the only person leaving the books with Mighty Morphin issue 100. Daphne, you have edited these comics since Mighty Morphin Power Rangers 0 in January 2016. You're also saying goodbye.
Yeah, in much the same manner Ryan is, in which we are working on Turtles together.
Yeah, we
but
just can't quit
that's
Turtles.
kind of our swan song because it's Dan. We want to have one last ride.
Oh yeah, I didn't think about it. It's like the Go-Go team back together.
Yeah.
Oh, just hit me. Sorry guys, it's slow. I
yeah.
hope this isn't too heady and boring. We're just like all lovey and dovey. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's 100 felt like a nice round number, and similar to Ryan, at a certain point, you kind of get wrapped up in you kind of like gone into such a corner. It's like I don't know if I have any more. Like I know what I'm excited by, but it's rarefied air, and it needed, I think, a fresh perspective and a different point of view. And I didn't want to. I didn't want to be the one holding the book back. And I'm very proud of the stuff that we've done. I'm very proud of the stories that we've told, but I'm just one point of view. And I know every time someone comes in contact with this franchise, they find something so cool. Every nook and cranny has something really exciting, and I wanted someone who would look in a corner I hadn't seen yet because I was so focused on the next thing. Monthly Comics is, as everyone on this table now knows, it's a grind, and you're always putting one step ahead, and I think it's really exciting that there's going to be a new team that is forging a new path.
Well, one thing I don't think people realize this. Maybe I'm wrong. I do not believe Power Rangers has missed a month since you've taken over. Is that correct?
I mean,
It's
I
never missed a
started
month.
it.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. So
Yeah.
that doesn't happen.
No.
That is very. I don't know. That's just insane. The book is. If you like the Power Ranger comic books, she is the reason it's still going. It's the reason the quality control is
Absolutely.
there. She is the reason. So yeah.
No. I mean, second, like Daphne, like your contributions to the brand cannot be understated enough. Like I feel like what you do has been invaluable. I think everybody at Hasbro sees it. I certainly saw it. Like, Ryan sees it. The books will miss you, and they would not be where they were if not for you, because I know how hard you worked every single time, and like the hours you worked and the passion. We've gotten to literal arguments.
Oh God.
I like fighting.
Yeah.
Oh God. Oh,
because
Jesus.
she cares so deeply and she believes so strongly and she's so freaking smart. It drives me crazy. And I love you forever and I will always cherish you. And I'm so
Happy I
sad.
pulled you into this mire. I'm like, that was the one.
And then left her to die.
Yes.
I'm gonna watch from the sidelines.
She's like, do you want to be on the books? But I'm not going to be on them anymore.
But Allison's awesome, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the
Yes.
one. That's the one thing that I'm so excited for is like, I think you have to be a control freak to comic free. I think writers have to be so that their vision can come through the noise. I think editors have to be because kind of like on like this train running 1,000 miles a minute. But I don't, and I think we all have a sense of ownership. We want it to be. We've been working on this for so long. We don't. You can't just step away and be like, well, and I don't care anymore. We only exist because we all care so much, and so knowing that I got to the editor and help set it up and trust it in people whose taste I think is impeccable, who's like I've seen your notes and I've seen your storytelling and I've read your original comics. I know that this is something you were meant to do, and Allison is incredible. And so I'm really excited for the next generation of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, not just because that's a Star Trek pun, but because it's in such capable, interesting, and fresh hands. And
I will say this, like we're gonna keep gushing. We'll do one thing. I promise. We're almost done. But like you taught me how to write a little. Like just so here's the thing. The one thing
when you
that
taught me how to edit, remember how many times it's
God.
just dialogue, and you're like, Daphne, that's called writing.
Oh no, I made a rule. She'd like send me dialogue runs. I'm like, I'm not using any of this. You're right, but I'm not gonna use any of this. But like I think it was when you brought me on to Go-Go, you were like, you taught me what was important about comic books and like what I should be focusing on. I would think of big ideas. I would think of, do what ifs, right? And then she's like, yes, but how does that relate to the character? How does that relate to where they're going? And so, and then the best part was, you know how many times I'd be like, and then this happened. She's like, well, why? I'm like, I don't know. I don't even care. Like, it's Power Rangers. We'll get there. And she's like, no, you have to think it through. And then doing that kept me honest. And then slowly that hopefully went away farther and farther. But like, I think that was one of the biggest things. But I will say the other person that, I think Kyle's in contribution Kyle's the reason we're up here too. Like, Shattered Grid is the best Power Ranger comic book ever. I will never write anything that's better than Shattered Grid, even though I was part of Shattered Grid. The thing, like, I remember when Kyle pitched it to me, and I was like, this is crazy. There's no way you can bring all these together. But to this day, it's the coolest thing. Everybody, like, it's the thing that when we go to these, this is the place for that.
How much cosplay do you see out there?
This is it. Like,
well, and
it's the best.
I remember that, again, like, you know it when you see it, and when Kyle turned in that first pitch, I actually don't think we asked for like a second one from him. He found the perfect way in, which was character. It was through the lens of someone's sort of first day being a good Power Ranger and coming with all of this baggage and trying to work out his past and his present. And Shattered Grid is a direct line from Tommy's anxiety. Yep. And it's that thing that we're talking about, is how do we get this cool big event? Well, it has to be through character, and that's something that Kyle established from issue 0, page 1.
Yeah, I hate to tell him this, he gave me all the best. I remember we were driving home one day and I was like, I really don't know what to do with Go-Go. And he's like, what if Kimberly had a boyfriend before Tommy? And I was like, that's a great idea. I'm going to take that. And then I remember in the middle of Shattered Grid, he was like, what would be cool is if Jason and Trini and Zach, they didn't go to the convention, the peace conference. I was like, that's a good idea. I should take advantage of that. So yeah, man, thanks for letting me take credit for all your ideas.
That's Rangers.
That's just, pure Rangers.
One last question, guys. Looking back on your time with Power Rangers, what are the memories that immediately stand out? Like days, minutes? What's the stuff that will stick with you?
Honestly, I think it was at Power Morphicon when they did the live reading of Shattered Grid. Yeah. And I remember the Zach scene and Zach, the actor was doing both Ranger Zach and Coinless Zach, and having a real character moment. Like that scene is like actually really thick and beautiful, and it's rare that you can get that in an event. And then I got to hear it in real life, and God, I mean, even like the Zordon Rita stuff.
Rangers. I was like,
Yeah,
that was
oh, gosh.
amazing.
It was surreal. I was sitting there, and I remember I was sitting like in the audience next to a fan, and the fan, like, this happened in an issue, and I was like, really? Which issue did it happen? And I wasn't even being sarcastic. I just love that other people were experiencing it the way that we intended. Yeah, that was surreal.
For me, it was turning the page, and I forget the issue. That one issue where all the lights come down when the Ranger's in the middle of Shattered Grid.
Yes,
outside the command
Daniele's.
center.
It's yes.
That'd be so cool if it was in 100.
Huh.
That'd be really cool.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Sorry.
I mean, I think that moment was just pure, like, this is what we were going for. This is truly what this event was supposed to be, and I can't believe they pulled it off, because we really could not believe they pulled it off.
Well, and the way Daniele drew Rangers striding literally towards the future, and you could see where the weight is on their hip. It was just the common that's to me the image of the event more than anything.
Yeah, for me, it actually has nothing to do with the comic. It was actually, when I got Go-Go and I was trying to write the first series, I was actually working on a television show at the time as like a staff writer, which is the lowest of the low. I had just got on the show, and no one would listen to me on the show. Like, I'd spend all day with these really smart people, and I'd try to pitch in ideas, and they were like, yeah, be quiet. And it was really hard, and it was sort of demoralizing, but then at night, I would go into my office and I would work on Go-Go Power Rangers #1, and I got to use all of that stuff that I learned from that show on this comic, and I got to talk to you about it. And it was the only thing that kept me from feeling like and it sounds weird that you're on a TV show and you feel like a failure, but it's hard when you're sitting there and everybody tells you you're stupid every day. And that was the one thing about the book that really helped me. It was like, that's the beautiful thing about comic books sometimes. It's like you really do get that opportunity to connect with you guys and write stuff. And so I would write that, and then I would go to conventions and meet you guys. And that's the thing that kept me going a lot of, I mean, this was what I did through COVID. Like, this was the thing that kept me sane, was writing these stories and connecting with you guys and talking about the ideas that you love, like being downstairs and having people come up and bring me a Yale helmet on my desk, which is so freaking cool. I was like, I made a cat a ranger. Come on.
You made my cat a ranger.
That's a mic drop moment. But yeah, so for me, this has been the best part of my life. I'm never going to be a part of something like this, as big and like this again.
I mean, I can't follow that up. That's beautiful.
So on that note, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers 100 will be out on September 28th, a month from today. Can I get a round of applause, please, for Mr. Ryan Parrott?
We literally sent it to press this week.
Yeah, it's done.
You guys, it's
Thursday.
amazing.
I appreciate it.
I cried.
On the last panel, the guy got everybody to stand up. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, I mean, you weren't on Power Rangers 30 years ago. Ryan, where is your table at Power Morphicon if people want to see you tomorrow?
418?
Something like that.
Something like that.
You'll find it.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you all very much.
Thank you guys so much. Really,
Thank
this means a
you.
lot. Thank you so much.